She was an innocent little girl. She was just a baby. I can't believe they're accusing me of doing something to my own baby.
20-year-old Laura Trujillo is accused of killing her 2-year-old daughter, Alizé.
What a tragedy. What a tragedy. It's just a gut sadness. She's almost begging you for help. She's looking at you. Can you understand where I am, and can you understand what's happening, and will you help me?
Denver Assistant DA Helen Morgan was on call the day Laura brought Alizé's badly beaten body into the emergency room.
The coroner in this particular case, Dr. Way, described it as one of the worst cases that he's ever seen. Literally every organ in the child's body, from her stomach to her spine, is ripped and torn.
You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that?
Immediately after Alizé was pronounced dead, Laura, who was confined to a wheelchair, was interrogated by the police.
But I know you can tell me.
I don't know what happened to her. I don't. I was sleeping and then I woke up. My baby wasn't there no more.
Initially, she tells the police that Alizé's injuries might have been a result of a fall the day before.
And she fell off the slide as she came down and said she was like, boom.
Suspicious, the police begin to ask about her live-in boyfriend of 8 months, Randy Ramirez.
Did Randy hit her?
Not that I know of.
Do you think he could have?
Randy never hits her though.
He wasn't at home in this incident with the fall of
It
the...
was just me and the baby.
She lied to the police officers. She lied to her family. She lied to the doctors who were trying to save the child's life.
Detectives were able to prove that Randy was there that night, and when he was brought in for interrogation, he eventually confessed to the beating. But prosecutors say he was not the only one responsible for the child's death.
There is no question that these people were co-complicitors in abusing and denying help to this child that naturally resulted in her death.
After Randy's confession, the police charged both Randy and Laura with child abuse resulting in death, which carries a maximum sentence of 48 years.
You know, she's probably not going to get any type of Mother of the Year awards, but I think that she tried to do her best with the situation she had.
Scott Reich is Laura's court-appointed lawyer. Today he's going to see her because the prosecutor has just told him about a very serious development in the case.
Helen returned my call from earlier. She mentioned that Randy is probably going to take a deal. Randy's going to take a plea. He's pleading guilty on probably Tuesday morning with a cap of 40 years.
Her boyfriend, Randy, has cut a deal with the prosecutor. In return for a lighter sentence, he has agreed to testify against Laura.
He admits to punching her, but he swears up and down that he didn't cause the head injury. He thinks that you did something to cause that.
No.
Okay.
Alizé's autopsy lists 2 separate causes of death: ruptured internal organs and a fractured skull.
Randy Ramirez took a polygraph and passed the fact that he did not cause the head injuries. And so, if she didn't, who did? I think she did.
To build a defense against this accusation, Scott is getting Laura's version of what happened on the night that Alizé was killed, a night that Laura says she took painkillers and sleeping pills and went to bed early.
Randy was awake in the bedroom, and I told him to watch Alizé, and he was playing his PlayStation. And he said, okay, and I took my pills and I went to sleep. And when I woke up the next morning, she was laying on the floor. And then that's when I looked over and I didn't see her stomach moving, and I seen that her lips were purple. And that's when I woke Randy up and told him that Alizé wasn't breathing.
Scott's strategy is to argue that Randy alone was responsible for all the injuries, and Laura was powerless to stop him.
You guys fought quite a bit?
Argued, yeah.
Argued quite a bit.
By all accounts, they had a volatile relationship. In fact, 3 months before Alizé's death, Laura told Randy she was leaving for good. That night, she was the victim of a crime that Scott thinks was no coincidence.
When you got shot, that was the same day or the day after that you basically told Randy you're out of here.
Yeah.
I mean, other people have speculated that,
he had something to do with it, he's really jealous.
No, I don't think he had anything to do with that.
You really don't?
No. 'Cause
The
he
shooting
knows
left
it
Laura
was-
paralyzed from the waist down, and although police initially questioned Randy, he was not charged.
This poor woman, I mean, she's in love with this monster. It's how I'm sure the defense will portray it. But you have a duty to protect your child. And if you're in love with someone who's abusing your child and you're allowing that to continue, your law imposes upon you a responsibility.
Even though authorities had told Laura that Randy might be abusing Alizé, she moved back in with him after the shooting.
I think that she was so mesmerized by this guy in the sense that she didn't want to believe that he could do anything wrong.
She still loves the guy. She's sending him letters in jail saying she loves him. I think it's a very unhealthy relationship on both ends. And Alizé was caught in the middle.
This is a child who had repeated episodes of physical abuse that have been on multiple occasions.
As the trial approaches, Helen is preparing one of her main witnesses, Dr. Catherine Wells, an expert in child abuse.
But she has bruises all over her fingers. That could be being grabbed. That could be being hit.
Dr. Wells says that Alizé's death was the culmination of months of abuse.
And you're looking at a kid here who has multiple injuries, abdominal injuries, head injuries, bruises, and she's had a history of those kinds of injuries in the past.
Under Colorado law, even if Laura's story about being asleep that night is true, she can still be charged with her daughter's death if she knew that Randy was abusing her child and did nothing to protect her.
You cannot not know. I cannot believe that when people say to you, how does she get those bruises? How does that black eye happen? You can say, genuinely, I don't know.
Scott thinks that the strongest way to counter Randy's testimony would be to put Laura on the stand, but he's afraid that she may come across as cold to the jury.
Oh, okay.
I think she puts on a front. She doesn't let anybody see that anything's fazing her because where she comes from, emotion is weakness. I mean, if I lost my kids, every time I heard their name, I'd probably just be a blubbering fool. And that's what I think most people would be like. And if she's not like that, I think we have trouble. Let me get the tape.
Scott feels that the reason that Laura is so unemotional is that she is in denial about Randy's role in her daughter's death.
You want to come around over here?
So he has brought her to his office to show her the tape of Randy's confession for the first time.
Let me rewind it just a little bit, okay?
I hit her in the stomach. I didn't know how hard I hit her. I wasn't aware of how hard I hit her.
How'd you hit her? Just with your fist?
Yeah, I hit her like that.
Now, telling the truth.
Yes.
You might as well tell the whole truth. Her injuries indicate more than one blow.
Yeah, that's all I hit her. I only hit her one time. I know for a fact I did not hit her in the head.
He says he didn't cause any injury to her head. And that's why they think you did something to her.
Dr. Sieg.
As the tape ends, they are joined by Dr. Ann Sieg and Laura's cousin. Dr. Sieg is a psychiatrist hired to testify on Laura's behalf.
Water, soda? No?
My daughter was in so much pain.
Yes.
She died painfully. I loved him. Trusted him.
What do you think the people on the jury need to know?
That he's guilty.
I swear to God, it was a whole different Laura. I don't know what clicked with her, but man, I thought for the first time, you know what? I could win this.
What do you need them to know about why you couldn't defend her either?
I just got shot. I took my pills. I was tired. My body was hurting. I couldn't do nothing.
This is, in my career, and I'm in my 10th year of prosecuting, probably the case that I wake up in the middle of the night more than any other case I've had.
Helen is accompanied by co-counsel Michael Dave, who will deliver the opening statement. Scott will be working with Melissa Trollinger.
Laura's there. It's her day in court. And, if we don't have the right witness, we ask him the wrong question, she'd be going to prison for 48 years.
All please rise. Quorum 17 is reconvened.
If you would please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or...
After a morning of jury selection, this is the jury of Laura Trujillo's peers. Among them, a sales rep, a teacher, and an auto mechanic.
On February 1st, 2003, Alize Reitgard was beaten to death. She was beaten from the very top of her head to the very bottom of her feet. She was beaten to death by the defendant, as well as by the defendant's boyfriend, Randy Ramirez.
And Randy Ramirez is going to come in here and he's going to tell you, I just lost it and I punched Alize Reitgard so hard that I ruptured her internal organs and then I tried to hide it.
He'll tell you that he punched this child so hard that she did not cry, she did not scream, but rather she just looked at him as if she could not breathe. And then Randy Ramirez looks at the defendant and nothing is said.
And you're going to want to know, where's Laura Trujillo? Well, she was on some medications and she was asleep before Randy Ramirez did anything to Alize Reitgard.
We will ask you to find the defendant guilty of child abuse resulting in death, specifically for placing Alize in a dangerous situation. And that danger being exposure to Randy Ramirez after she had knowledge that he was abusing this child.
And when the truth comes out, you'll have a simple decision to make, and that's to find Laura Trujillo not guilty.
The people call Mrs. Vicky Ramirez.
Vicky Ramirez is the mother of Laura's boyfriend, Randy.
Tell us, Mrs. Ramirez, how you first got involved that Sunday morning.
My son Randy called me. And then when I got there and seen Alize, I tried to shake her and tell her, Grandma's here, Alize, talk to me. And I couldn't get no response from her at all. She was gone. By the time I got there, she was already gone.
Did you ask specifically how did she get these bruises all over her face?
Yes, I asked Laura. But all she said was that she fell from the playground.
I have no further questions for you. Thank you, Ms. Ramirez.
Sir, do you solemnly swear or affirm under
To
penalty of
establish that
perjury
Laura
or
was aware that her daughter was being abused, Helen calls Dean Harris, a police officer who was called to the apartment Laura shared with Randy 5 months before Alize died.
Tell the members of the jury what, if anything, you saw when you examined Alize Reitgard in October of 2002.
Two things stood out. She had some bruising on both ears, and it was on the top of the ear and went around onto the back of the ear. And as well, I noticed that around both nostrils it was crusted with dried blood.
Did you talk to Miss Trujillo about what you saw on Alize?
Yes, I did.
And what'd she tell you?
She told me that she didn't know how the bruising came about. She said she thought that the bloody nose must have come from Alize rolling off of her bed.
Did you say anything to her about the future?
We arranged for follow-up from social service like first thing the next morning. But in the meantime, I begged her, I told her to, not let Randy watch the child, make sure and keep him away from the child, not let him be alone with the child.
You didn't arrest Mr. Ramirez that day, did you?
No, I did not.
You didn't arrest Ms. Trujillo?
No, I didn't.
You didn't remove Alize from the home?
No, I didn't.
Despite Harris's recommendation, social workers did not arrive the next day. It was not until a week later that Elizabeth McKinley followed up. By then, the bruises had healed.
Who showed you Alize that day?
Ms. Trujillo.
And did you observe any injuries on Alize?
None that I could discern at that time.
You didn't remove Alizé from the home.
Correct.
Which is certainly within your authority to do so.
Correct.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Please tell us your name.
Mary Velasquez.
Mary Velasquez is a friend of Laura's and Randy's.
Did you ever see any interaction between Alizé and Randy Ramirez?
Yes, I did.
Tell us about how you saw that interaction.
At first, all I seen was him making her sit in a chair all day long, literally all day, hours at a time.
When was it that you saw Randy Ramirez flicking Alizé's ears?
Oh, he flicked her ears when she would get out the chair, like if she tried moving out of it.
Before I go on, what is a flick?
Like this, flicking her ear like that.
Did she say anything when he's flicking this child's ear?
No.
And what did Laura Trujillo tell you about those injuries?
I confronted her and I told her that I knew where the bruises had come from and that she needed to do something about it. And she said that she knew that she had to do something.
One of the key pieces of evidence in the prosecution's case is Laura's videotaped statement to the police.
Other bruises that there's concern about the child being abused.
By me?
By somebody. Did Randy hit her?
Not that I know of.
Do you think he could have?
Randy never hits her though.
I'm not buying it, I'll be honest with you. But I know you can tell me.
I don't know what happened to her. I don't. I was sleeping and then I woke up. My baby wasn't there no more.
Tell me the causes of death.
Alizé Reichert died of blunt force injuries to the head or blunt force injuries to the stomach.
Dr. James Way is the coroner who performed Alizé's autopsy.
Was there anything, did you observe anything in the rib area?
There were also 5 broken ribs, 2 of which were healing. The other 3 occurred at the time when all this other abuse happened.
The state hopes that the fact that 2 of the ribs were partially healed will lead the jury to conclude that Alizé was seriously abused in the months before she was killed, and that her death was the culmination of this abuse.
There was another bruise near the right eye, a bruise on the underside of the chin. Alizé had injury to the front of her head. She had injury to the back of her head.
I am wondering if you could please show the members of the jury, using that teddy bear, in your opinion, what amount of force it would take to cause the fracture you have told us about today.
The bone in the back of the skull is almost never involved unless it's non-accidental trauma, unless there's a lot of force.
People are ready, Your Honor. It's my understanding the sheriffs are bringing Mr. Randy Ramirez at this time.
The state's most important witness is Laura's ex-boyfriend, Randy Ramirez.
I don't want to see his face. I don't want to listen to him. I don't want nothing to do with him. And if I would have never met Randy, I'd be walking and I have my daughter.
Randy begins by recounting the fatal day, a day spent smoking marijuana and fighting with Laura about other women.
It all started over the previous night. It kept going on for the whole day about like, oh, you're out some bitches, huh? You're out some bitches.
Take us then into the early evening. What happens?
And we don't have too much food, so I make some sopa with some macaroni and cheese, you know.
Well, then what happens next?
I was standing in the doorway of our bedroom, and I look at Laura and I told her, you know, babe, look, Alizé threw her food all over the kitchen. Then she's like, Alizé, come here. Alizé comes in the room, and then that's when she throws her food on the floor and steps on it.
What did you do, Mr. Ramirez?
Out of nowhere, I hit her. For no reason, I hit her.
What does she do when you hit her?
She stumbled back and sat on her bed. She didn't cry. She just got a little smirk on her face.
A smirk?
Just like where she wanted to cry, but it didn't come out.
Where is the defendant when you hit Alizé?
Laying on the bed.
Do you look at her at any point?
Yeah.
Why?
To see if I was gonna get a reaction on why I hit her.
Did you?
No.
Later that night, Randy says he woke up and heard some strange sounds.
What do you hear?
2 thumps on the floor.
Do you know where those thumps were coming from?
I could tell they're coming from behind me.
Well, what's behind you?
Laura and Alizé.
The state wants the jury to believe that those thumps were caused by Laura banging Alizé's head on the floor. Randy's testimony is the only evidence they have. Now it's the defense's turn to attack it.
Mr. Ramirez, you killed Alizé Rygard.
Yes.
At some point you decided to give her a bath.
Yes. Yes.
And she kept falling down in that bathtub, didn't she, sir?
Yep.
And you kept trying to pull her.
Yes.
And she'd fall down.
Yes.
And you'd pull her up by the arms.
Yes.
And she just kept hitting her head, didn't she, sir?
She would fall all over the bathtub, yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
After Randy, it's time for the defense's case. Scott still expects Laura to be his main witness.
The jury wants to hear from her. The jury wants to hear from her own mouth what the hell happened and why did she stay with this loser.
She is very volatile, very angry, and not very sophisticated. And so when you put somebody like that on the stand, you are taking a huge risk.
To prepare Laura for the pressure she will feel on the stand, Scott takes her to an unfamiliar environment, one of Denver's most expensive restaurants.
I'm sorry. You get up, you see that she has bruises on her face. Did you ever ask anyone what the hell happened?
When I woke up, Alizé was on the floor. So I figured, maybe she fell off the bed and she hit her face and then she rolled over.
Yeah, but come on, Laura. I mean, that little mattress is maybe that high. She's not gonna get bruises like that from falling off a bed.
I just wanted to get her to the hospital, as long as I know what I know.
I understand that, but remember, we have to be able to explain this to a jury.
I know what the jury's
That's
gonna
crazy.
ask,
That
and
seems crazy.
I'm gonna tell them what I could tell them. Just like I said, there ain't nothing I could do. Whatever I say, I say.
I know, but that makes me question whether we put you on the stand.
No, I'm getting on the stand so they could hear my side of the story, and I'm just gonna tell them I'm gonna speak from my mind.
You can't cop an attitude with her.
Well, she's gonna come at me with that attitude, and I'm gonna throw an attitude right back.
Well, then you're gonna get convicted.
Well, why am I gonna let somebody throw an attitude at me and I ain't gonna throw one back?
Because your life is on the line here?
I wasn't raised like that.
There is absolutely, positively, no way we can let her take that stand.
Mr. Reich, any evidence on behalf of Ms. Trujillo?
Yes, we would, Your Honor. And at this time, we would call Dr. Ann Sieg.
Scott has convinced Laura not to testify, and instead decides to question Dr. Ann Sieg about what Laura told her about her own childhood.
But it's fair to say there's a lot of people that don't have what they would consider the perfect childhood.
Correct.
What makes her situation a little different?
Her mother was a woman who struggled with alcoholism, placement by social services at some point in her early childhood with an uncle, abuse by the uncle, verbally, rape at age 14, sporadic attendance at school, dropping out after the 8th grade.
Were you able to form an opinion as to why you think Laura Trujillo would stay with Randy Ramirez?
Yes. One of the hallmarks of an abusive, neglectful childhood is the ability to tolerate unbelievable abuse from a partner in order to delay abandonment, to continue in this seeming safety and security of a relationship that is known to that person.
Members of the jury, after the last week, you have seen that this defendant failed Alize Reigard in every manner possible.
Randy Ramirez killed Alize Reigard.
The testimony from this stand, the evidence is replete with warning signal after warning signal that she chose to ignore it.
But you know what? And they want you to hold Laura Trujillo to a higher standard than the professionals in the field that said, I didn't see an immediate harm.
Mr. Dave and I are asking you to convict this defendant, to hold her accountable for what she did, which is recklessly causing the death of this little girl.
You do not want to convict an innocent person. She is not criminally responsible for the death of Alize.
Thank you, Mr. Reich.
Laura's fate is now in the hands of the jury. They will start their deliberations in the morning.